All right, we're live. Happy Friday, everyone. We're super excited to be able to be here with some phenomenal people to talk about our beloved Haiti. My name is Sandra Dennis, and I'm with Avanse Ansanm. And we are a movement for Haitian American young people in South Florida, really working to build economic and political power, as well as preserve Haitian culture in South Florida's Haitian community. We are here with amazing guests, Daphne, Jetri, and Max. We're going to pause for a minute to have folks share the live, and then we're going to introductions. So give us a few. We're going to share the live, and then we'll take it from there. I see folks are sharing, so I think we should be fine. So let's start off with introductions. We'll start with Daphne. Daphne, please introduce yourself. Tell folks about who you are, what you do, and the insights that you'll be bringing to this conversation.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daphne Boubouin. I am a social, which is a textile made in Haiti, a product. A little broader, we could put all products made in Haiti under it, but for the past 5 years, we've mainly been focusing on apparels. I have lived here for 10 years, moved back from Florida where I lived for 17 years. And I'm a member of Nupapdomi, which is a local collective. I'll get a chance to tell you more about it as we move along. So that's me.
Great. We're going to turn to Jetri to introduce herself next. I hope I'm saying your name right. Introduce yourselves and tell folks all about yourself. You're on mute.
Yes, I'm Jetri Dumont. Currently, I'm the director of Aibo Post, and I'm also the co-founder. I've lived in the US for 5 years. I studied in the US in New Jersey. I've been back in Haiti. It's been 6 years now. I worked on plenty of projects, but the main project that I've worked on, it's Aibo Post. What we are, it's a media company that focuses on explanatory journalism. And also we have a sister company called Aibo Studio, which is a video production company. So that's what I mainly do.
Thank you. And we're going to turn to you, Max, to kind of introduce yourself and the perspective that you'll be bringing to the conversation this evening.
So thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here. I'm not happy, obviously, about all the things that are going on right now in Haiti. But my name is Max Gameau. I was born in Haiti, raised in the Washington, D.C. area. I lived in Miami for 20 years or so, and now I'm back in D.C. I have been with a number of organizations. I am now an organizer with Pan-African Community Action, or PACA, which is based here out of Washington. And we organize on a number of issues that impact the Black community locally in DC, internationally, of course, including Haiti.
Thank you for that, Max. So we really wanted to have this conversation because, one, living in the diaspora, being born in America, it is often challenging to dissect and really understand what's really happening in Haiti. Specifically for folks who live in South Florida, we get Haiti news all the time. Miami Herald has a section on Haiti, and the perspectives are often so different. And so it can be quite challenging really trying to get perspective, one, from the ground, but also from trusted sources. We also know that when we had this conversation, we knew that we were talking about actually what was happening with the president, whether or not he was still the president, what folks make of that. But right now, actually in Haiti, we know that there's been some action on the ground even today. So I want to pause and really have folks talk about what's going on. Daphne, if you can give your perspective, Jetri as well for folks who are on the ground, then we can kind of talk about like, from Mac's point of view, how did we get here? From the US perspective, the involvement of the US government. And so we can really have a full conversation so that people can leave here really having a better understanding of what activists are asking for on the ground, but also what role that the diaspora can play in being solidarity with folks on the ground. So let's turn to Daphne and Jetri. If y'all want to give us a little bit of insight, what happened today? How did we get here? What's been happening over the last few years under this administration and previous administrations as well? And I know that's a loaded question, but take it wherever you want to take it.
Yeah, should we start with just basically a background of what's been happening and then lead to today's events? Or yeah. Well, I will be in and out of English. Like I said, I left 10 years ago, and for some reason lately my English just been failing me. So for the past 3 years, anyone outside of Haiti or even in Haiti looking in will probably just say that Haiti has been paralyzed with, protests, people just wanting President Jovenel Moïse to leave power, etc. All started with reports of his implications or revelations of corruption that implicated President Moïse, members of his party, and many others across Haiti's political spectrum. So this broad-based social movement calling for the end of impunity, corruption, basically swept the country for the past 3 years. More recently, with his mandate ending this past February, we're still at the same, pretty much same situation, asking that he leaves power. And not only now, I mean, we're past the phase of asking him to leave power because of his implications, but because now he's unconstitutional, basically ruling illegally.
Can you say what that means? Like people are like, what do you mean is unconstitutional that he's ruling illegally?
Right. So there's a lot of constitutional dispute over Jovenel Moïse's mandate. So basically the constitutional dispute arises regarding the point at which when the president's mandate starts. So a president's mandate is a 5-year term. Presidential elections were held on October 2015. The results were thrown out because there were irregularities, fraud. There was rerun elections that took place in 2016. He was installed as a president in 2017. So if we were to stay at that, we'd be like, okay, so his term is not over. But the Constitution specifies clearly that the president is entitled to a 5-year term. However, it has a clause in there that stipulates that the elected officials cannot get a benefit to their term from fraudulent elections. So in case of a runoff or rerun election, the official term still begins on February 7th, immediately after the first election took place, regardless of when the elected official took office. So Jetri, I don't know if you want to add a little bit more details, but the bottom line is, even if he were to swear in, a year into his term, he would still have to leave the office because that's what the Constitution says.
Go ahead, Jetri.
Yes, as Daphne pointed out, we are of course in a constitutional crisis, which increased the intensity of the political crisis we were already in, but also in a longer term, in a longer time frame, we are in a societal crisis. It's very hard to it's very hard to disconnect all those crises because they're all related. They're all, I think, um, results of, first and foremost, that societal crisis that we've been going through for a while. And when I'm saying for a while, I'm talking about maybe we can go back to 100 years, maybe we can go back to 200 years. But the immediate problems that we have are very politically related, and they all have roots in a corrupted system that has been, I think, that is in at the end of its lifetime. That there's a system, there's a corrupted system that is fighting to stay alive, and it seems like the population cannot with it anymore. Especially, and Haiti, it's there's many Haitis in Hades. I would say that in mostly in the urban areas, you can feel that there's a lot of tension. Um, in rural areas that has felt disconnected from that thing that we call government or state, they still feel like they're not concerned about what's happening. There is a complete disconnect because the centralized government has forgotten about these people for so long that they don't really care about who's president, who's not. So it's a society that I think needs to be rethought of. That's my analysis of what's happening.
Can y'all tell us a little bit more specifically, when you talk about societal pressures, tension, what does that actually look like on a day to day before we go to Max and kind of talk about US interference and things of that sort?
Let, First, look at it as something that happens in all aspects of society. For example, I live in Port-au-Prince. If after we have that talk, I drive home and I have an accident, there is not, there is two hospital where I can have a proper surgery. One in Port-au-Prince right now that is in a place where there's a lot of insecurity. I'm not sure that I can get there. And another one in Ballet. That's the type of situation we're talking about. If you go on, and it's also related to corruption because there was money to build a lot of hospitals. If you go to Hôpital Général, the hospital that is supposed to be the main hospital of the the capital of Haiti, Port-au-Prince. If you go there right now, you most likely won't get any service because there's unpaid doctors, because doctors are protesting the fact that one of them has been killed recently, 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you know about the Dr. Paddy story, who was gunned down in the street of Port-au-Prince. So, and the same analysis you could do for the health care, quote unquote, industry. It's the same thing you could do for education. It's the same thing you could do for even the press, or the media that I'm from. It's on all aspect of society that you can see that there's a failing. You can feel like there's a system collapsing.
And I think your point that I want to land is that imagine for folks who are in Miami going to Jackson Hospital or Broward General, which are the public hospitals in Broward County and Jackson in Miami-Dade County, and not being able to be served. And we typically think of those as a public hospitals because those hospitals you can't get turned away. Like they have to see you. And so that's the situation that you really kind of painted for us. And then you also talked about like all the systems really having some kind of system failure, where whether or not it's education, whether or not it's healthcare, policing, media, you look at me, media, but the media, you know, you're really not seeing strong systems. You're really seeing a collapse. I wanted to know, Daphne, if you want to also paint the picture of what's happening even today. I know there was issues with law enforcement and gangs even today. And so we're really seeing a lot of what the diaspora sees every day on TV, around a lot of unrest and a lot of violence, in a narrative that I'm very sensitive about, because I think that Black people want to think Black people are violent, but that's an American, that's a problem that all Black people face. But tell us about what's happening today, Daphne.
Well, today, there's been police operations in Bicentenaire, which is where Village de Dieu is, which is where there's a lot of gang activities. Pretty much operations, I'm sure, to try to dismantle the gangs. And instead of the police, au lieu que c'est policiers qui maîtrisent la situation, si je dis ça comme ça, c'est bandits qui prend policiers et puis un peu de victimes.
So that to your point, there was somewhat of an insurrection today, in the same way that we saw in the Washington, D.C. Capitol, where people overtook the Capitol Police. Today in Haiti, gang members, if that's what you're saying, were more than the police force.
Right. I don't know if I would compare it to the insurrection that happened at the Capitol in the States, but
We lost you just a little bit there, Daphne.
these are known facts to say that, yes. Can you hear me? Yeah. So human rights organizations have pointed that out. We know it, we've heard it. Yes, the gangs are more equipped than our national police. And personally, I'm very sad and disturbed by what happened, because a lot of lives were lost, and just the gruesome videos circulating. I don't want to believe that this is us. But I am not surprised that it took that turn, that it will probably continue to take that turn, because we're talking about a police force that's been weakened, that's been politicized, that's been, you name it. So you almost feel like sending them out there is, it's a trap. But at the same time, there has to be, the population is asking the police to take care of the situation. But if the police is not equipped properly to go into the situations, I'm afraid that we might see more of this happening. Jetris in the media, he might have more pertinent information about exactly like other details of how it all went down. But like you, I saw the WhatsApp videos, I heard the voice notes, and this is what my take is on it so far. Jetri?
Yes, it's really horrible what happened today. Really, really horrible, and it's such a shame for not only the Haitian police, but our entire governmental or state structures. But to understand what's happening, we need to understand that it's not only I would say a procedural problem. It's been something that's been building for a long time to get there, and especially for the past, I would say 5 to 10 years, the political forces of Haiti have used a lot. The political and economical forces have used a lot of people, a lot of young Haitians in the ghetto, to gain political gain, to gain political, I would say, political field, to gain points politically. And it's a result of a lot of big businessmen and a lot of big politicians, a lot of big political party, especially now the one in power right now, PHTK, putting guns in the hands of young men in the ghetto. So it's not a process that has happened overnight to have a little community, a little ghetto called Village de Dieu, having heavily armed people, gangsters that are way more equipped than the Haitian police. It's a process to get there. That's what we need to understand. And also, it's also not only something national that got it that got us there. It's also international, because most of these guns come from the U.S. And it's something that and that's where the diaspora, the political power of the diaspora, especially the diaspora from South Florida, it's there needs to be pressure there needs to be lobbying in Congress, in state Congresses, to at least understand why and how that many guns have come have come from the US to Haiti. How could that possibly be true? There's a report that I read a few weeks ago where it was mentioned that around 97% of those guns that are involved in murders, in big issues, come from the US. So there's definitely, since we're talking to the diaspora, this is a place where the diaspora can actually influence stuff to have an impact in Haiti. Because it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense that there's so much guns coming from the US that gets to Haitian young men's hands.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to turn to Max in just a minute because he can tell us a lot about international interference in countries such as Haiti. But I also want to like paint a picture that I was a Sunlight Fellow, and I know Leonie might be watching. Hey, Leonie. And through Sunlight, I met Focal, and former Prime Minister Michelle Pierre Louis came to Miami, and she said something that I will never forget. She said, in the United States of America, even in Miami, there are gun stores everywhere. You can go to a palm store and get a gun. And she was like, there's no real gun stores in Haiti like that. Like there's not like a storefront that people can pick up guns, but yet there's so many guns in Haiti. And she was like, if there's no gun stores, how are the guns getting into Haiti? And that was a question that we didn't, we can come to a conclusion as to how they're getting there, but it's something that sometimes we don't remember, or we don't know, or we don't think critically about that. Actually, just like you see in the US, there's not gun stores everywhere in all countries. And so how do these countries get a lot of guns? And maybe I'm going to turn to Max to really kind of talk about the work that you've been doing, really connecting the dots for folks around US superpowers and how they interfere with countries such as Haiti, and really give you some space to answer to some of the questions that Jetri just asked in terms of pressure from the diaspora on our elected officials in Congress, at the state level, at the local level as well. What could that look like, and what should that be?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you both for your insights to what is
Max, you're
happening.
just a little bit low. I don't know if you
Sorry,
can turn
thank
your
you so
volume up.
much for your insights into what is happening there on the ground. I'm learning a lot from it, and I appreciate the insights. So just to cover a little bit, I don't want to go way back, but just for a second to go way back. Haiti, of course, was once known as the crown jewel of the French Empire because it was such a valuable colony. It has lots of natural resources. Of course, the climate and the soil is perfect for growing lots of food and different types of foods, and etc. But moving up, and therefore it had a lot of value in European eyes. Well, the fact that Haiti became independent from its European domination didn't remove the value of of the resources there. The value remains there, both the natural resources and also the strategic location there in the Caribbean. So Haiti has strategic value. Haiti has economic value. Haiti has all of those things, and the U.S. now is the one who is exerting pressure and exerting influence and actual power over Haiti. So we've seen that in a few ways. There are corporations then that want to make money and want to make profit by exploiting the poverty and the weakened political position of Haiti and the Haitian government and the Haitian people. And of course, it's difficult to do that when you have a strong governmental structure. You can't just go into a country and say, well, we want to pay close to slave wages when there's a government that is representing people and is fighting for those people. So then how does it end up doing that? So it's a number of ways that it does that. The most recent one was in the early 2000s during the Obama administration, when the minimum wage in Haiti was increased after a big fight, both big fight internally inside of Haiti and also a lot of controversy outside of Haiti from businesses who wanted to continue to exploit the labor and exploit the resources in Haiti. And the minimum wage was raised there to something like 67 cents an hour. So not really a whole lot of money, certainly not a lot of money, not a living wage in most places, and not even a living wage in Haiti. And yet, in spite of raising the minimum wage to 67 cents an hour, the big companies that have their products assembled or manufactured there, particularly in the textile industry, Hanes, Levi's, Fruit of the Loom, The Gap, many of these companies who make all kinds of money because labor is so cheap in Haiti, then complained mightily, lobbied heavily against the minimum wage being raised. But because there was so much going on in Haiti at the time, politically, etc., the minimum wage was raised anyway. And so, since those companies were not able to fully pressure the government in order to keep the wages not just low, because they were still low after the wages, to keep them at the rock bottom prices, at near slave wage prices, those companies then went to the US government and complained to the State Department that the minimum wage in Haiti has been raised to now 67 cents an hour. And the State Department then swung into action and went there and lobbied and put all kinds of pressure on the Haitian government. And when you're when you're the world superpower, and you have the on one hand, and then on the other hand, you have the poorest performing economy in the hemisphere, a very small country, even if it was high performing, and the superpower is trying to put pressure on the smaller country, it has a myriad of ways it can do so. It could prevent travel for those there. It could easily raise tariffs, which the U.S. did back and forth, raising and dropping tariffs, and it could impact the lives of elected officials who have money and who want to travel other places and do other things, invest in other places. They could start investigations into corrupt politicians, not because the United States cares that the politicians are corrupt, but because they want to force those politicians to do what the United States wants them to do. So at the behest of the textile industry, of major corporations that are making millions of dollars because they can pay such cheap wages in Haiti, the State Department forced the Haitian government to create an exemption for the textile industry and reduce the minimum wage once again there. So here's a clear example of where there were particular financial interests in Haiti that were held by companies that were from the United States. Hanes, Levi's, Fruit of the Loom, Gap, and those others. And they then use their financial power and the power of the US government to change laws and practices in Haiti in order to manipulate the economy there in Haiti. And surely with threats of doing much worse, and there were threats of raising tariffs on other products in Haiti. So in other words, if the government did not lower the price of labor in the textile industry, the U.S. was going to raise tariffs in other industries. It was going to make it more expensive to sell Haitian goods in the U.S., which would have had a devastating impact on the Haitian economy. So this is the way that the Haitian economy is devastated, and it keeps people in poverty. But it's also really a way that then the U.S. can manipulate those who are in power. Another example of manipulation of those in power, if we go a little bit further back, Everyone, of course, knows that Jean-Vincent Aristide was elected as president in 1990, and then in 91 was ousted from power in a coup. That at the time looked like it was done by the military, but has since been widely recognized that the U.S., the CIA, and corporate interests, including some of these same corporate interests who were in the textile industry and other industries, were actually the ones who were behind it, were green lighting it. In other words, the military would not have felt like they could do that kind of thing if they thought that the U.S. would intervene in order to maintain the democratic process there. So this was under George H.W. Bush, the first George Bush, because George H.W. Bush did not want a president in Haiti who had all kinds of anti-American rhetoric. And even though there were lots of things that obviously did not do, there were some things that he did that deviated from the normal path of Haitian elected officials in terms of opening up businesses and to U.S. interests. So he was removed from power, and a military government instead was installed. And this was done with the full allowance of the U.S. government. This could not have happened with the U.S. government right there. U.S. government has invaded Haiti multiple times and would have done so in this case if it thought it went against their interests. Then when Clinton was arrested, Clinton was elected into Bill Clinton was elected president of the United States, became president. A few years later, in '94, he helped orchestrate the return of Aristide into office. And of course, many of those who were fighting for his return thought this was a great gesture and a clear example of the difference between a liberal U.S. president and a conservative U.S. president. However, what we found out, we recognized some of it immediately, but saw the depth of it a bit later, was that the U.S. government worked very hard to return Aristide into power in a much weakened position. They forced him, as a condition of his returning, they forced him to agree to certain things that would weaken the Haitian economy and improve the position of U.S. businesses, such as allowing more rice imports in. And in fact, Bill Clinton was later forced to publicly admit, he said, when we did this move of allowing more rice imports, it did more to help the farmers in Arkansas than it did to help the farmers and people in Haiti. He was forced to admit that what they did in order, as a condition of Aristide getting returned to power, was harmful to Haitians and helpful to U.S. business interests.
Can I add, Max, really quickly? And then I'm going to come back to, let's see some perspective from Jetri and Daphne, and we'll come back to you, Max. I think one of the reasons why it's important to talk about U.S. Intervention and our like big brother always hovering is because there's a rhetoric, especially I would say from Haitians who live a majority in of their lives and have come and live in America, that America is great, Haiti is bad. And like, you know, for so much of what we have in terms of protections, child labor laws, minimum wage, things of that sort, you know, there's an idea that just happened versus that, you know, people fought for us to get here, like, right? And so like, I think that to me, that's really important for us to be able to understand that, yeah, Sandra Dennis, born in America, great to be an American, and America has very, very bad ways, especially for someone who's kind of like a hyphenated person, Sandra who loves, who, you know, I won't say I love, but Sandra who's an American, but also Sandra who's an American and Haitian. And how do you kind of like reconcile that when you know there's an awful history there, and we got to be very honest and cognizant of that. And I'll kind of like pass to Jetri and Daphne to see if there's anything that really stands out to you all. We know the guns are coming from America. We know that we have Rubio and Rick Scott, who are not friends to many of us, who are the senators for the state of Florida. And so it's just also a hard situation when we don't turn out to vote and make sure that people don't only have the best interests of our people here in mind, but our folks in Haiti as well. What are your thoughts, Jetri and Daphne, as we talk about America's role and what the diaspora can do to really be in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Haiti? Daphne, let's hear from you first.
Well, I remember when Biden was coming into power, I posted and said that the US policy for Haiti is what it is. I always feel like regardless if it's Democrat or Republican, America has this plan for Haiti is what I call it. And it is what it is. And until we have people in power who can stand up to what those policies are, we have good people representing us, we have good people deciding for us, the plan is gonna go as is. So I think it's time that we prune leaders that are competent, leaders that have the interests of Haiti in mind, so that they're not easily bought, easily coerced into deciding things they know are not good for our country. Like right now, the US backing this current administration and talking us into changing our constitution, a referendum, and elections, clearly seeing that it's not possible, yet pushing it, and finding people, you know, president, ministers, diplomats, backing that up as well, all in the sake of keeping power, then the plan is gonna go as is. The US has a lot to do with where we are right now. And the US is not, in my opinion, gonna just accept blame, just the, okay, we saw where we failed. They're not gonna openly ever say that. So it's just gonna go as it is, until we as a diaspora first, because if you guys are strong there, if you guys are a voice there, then there is certain things that they're not going to be able to do here. So that's why I always push the diaspora to organize themselves, mobilize, organize, not just for where you are, because essentially you're in the US because your country is not good enough for you to be here. So if your country was good, you wouldn't have to be in the US. So yes, you're fighting for your rights there as an American, as a Black American, et cetera, with all that entails. But there's still a lot of work to be done here, and your voice can help change things. You know, your congressman, your congresswoman have more power than us here. What they say, go. So you might as well use your voice, use your power to change the narrative and tell them that you're no longer okay with how things are, that you're not gonna accept them backing an administration who clearly wants to violate your constitution. And I think those are ways that we can help change things a bit.
So what you're saying, if I'm correct, it's not you know, all the social stuff that we do to send back. That's one part. You're also saying that it is equally as important or even more important for us to be activated politically to hold our elected officials accountable to our folks. And I always give this example. Let me tell you something.
Absolutely.
The Jews don't play. You know, if you will respect them. You will let them know what they're going to be doing in Israel. They have to be on the same. The government, the elected officials know that they need to listen to the Jews. They need to be on the same page with them. And so I think that for us, it's like, what does it look like for us to flex our political power in Florida, in New York, in Georgia, where there's large numbers now, for folks to know that there's a strong Haitian community as well, and they have to listen to our needs, but also that we need to be aligned with the folks like you all who are on the ground to make sure that we're saying the same thing. We have the same messaging, we have the same demands and asks, so that they can really take it seriously. And so I think that landed really well. And I'm going to turn to Jetri. I see you smiling. Jetri, take us home. What do you think?
I go along those lines too. I always think that I truly believe that the day that the South Floridian Americans understand and organize the real power they have, and when they'll be able to decide who's going to be the senator, where they can tip the balance between who's going to be the senator or the governor of Florida, we're going to have a different policy. We're going to have different policy discussions between Haiti.
Move to Florida. Move to Florida. Come on down.
No, I cannot move to Florida. I cannot move to Florida.
No, don't take him.
The diaspora needs to organize itself first, and then think about doing social stuff in Haiti, which is also good. It's very important to have that. But their voice will be better heard when they are strong politically where they at. It doesn't make any sense that the Cuban Americans have that much power in Florida politics and that Haitians are merely existent. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. We need to better organize where we are at. We have a culture. We have a culture, especially in South Florida. In Florida, when I had the opportunity to meet a few people with Leonie a few months ago before the Biden elections, but it felt like we have a population that is still trying to stay distant from politics, still trying to stay. And I'm not even talking about big. I'm talking about local politics, things that actually matters to you, your community, because the fact that you're doing better in where you're living, it's actually good for us in Haiti. So that's my first point. The second thing I wanted to do, it's in relation to Max. I wanted to say it's in relation to what Max has been, the point that Max has been laying. I appreciate how he looked at or history in the big schemes of things, but there's also a dichotomy in the way we discuss Haiti that to me is very dangerous. It's on the first hand, you have some people who think that it's all about the blanc, the American that decides everything. And on the other hand, you have people that say that, oh, c'est parce que c'est haïtien, haïtien va mettre tête yo ensemble, que pays a comme ça. I think that the truth lies in between these two things. When you have the point that Max made about Aristide, it's maybe that's true that there was pressure, international pressure on him on some issues, but he's the one who decided to open our market, to completely liberalize or the Haitian economy. He's the one who decided to privatize so many state companies. They were his decisions. So that's why it's important to keep our leaders accountable for what they've done actually, and it's never gonna be black or white. It's gonna be in the gray area very often. But it's important to understand that on one side, we're not gonna have Americans that are going to decide if Haiti is gonna make it. And on another side, it's impossible to have. It's impossible. It's not logical to say that it only depends on Haiti, because we're in a world where we're more and more we're interconnected. We're more and more we need to understand what are the moves that are happening within the Caribbean, within the CARICOM, to understand what we as Haitians need to do. We are interconnected. So yeah.
Can I add?
Oh, go ahead, Daphne, and then I'm gonna go to Max.
No, I was going to add to what Ayiti said about, I think culturally, we grew up scared of anything that has to do with politics, that has to do with country. And I think that was my observation when I moved. And maybe had I not left Haiti, I wouldn't have realized that as a citizen, I have rights. As a citizen, I have responsibilities towards my country. It took me leaving Haiti to learn that by seeing how other governments work and other citizens work. So I think even when Haitians leave Haiti, that we still have to do that work of educating them, of teaching them that matters of country are important. They have to take part in it, whether it's has to do with your kids' school in Florida, whether it has to do with the hospitals in Washington. Haitians, I think, even if when they move, they still go and they're just worried about, their little lives and not much more. So um, they go and they strictly focus on, getting a job, going back to school, but anything else that has to do with bettering their lives by their engagement, they kind of shy away from that. And until we have that, because the hope is that there you can do it so much, I don't want to say so much better, but you can do it there and basically have a domino effect here. That's what we're hoping for. That's what we've been hoping for, that you'll be strong there and you are so strong there that it carries over here. But so far, we're not seeing that. And to me, to see change, we need that. We need a strong diaspora. We need a diaspora that's involved, that knows their rights, that knows that laws have to be respected. Même le diaspora rentre en Haïti, li vle viole loi yo, le vin la en vacances, gen de bagay li pa vle respekte, tandis que l'autre doit respecter yo. So all of that, have to be addressed if we're talking about changing this place.
That was phenomenal, Daphne. One more thing, and then I'm gonna turn to Max because I know you had a question, something to add. I always think about socialization. So when I was in elementary school in Florida, we would vote every time there's an election. They would make us practice voting, and they would tell us that this school, this president won, this school, another president won. And so there was like a socialization that was happening with us that we didn't even really realize that even then they were trying to get us in the habit of knowing our rights, knowing that it's important to vote. And so some of us think it's just like, oh, you learned it, oh, it's in you. No, there was a process to make you take it seriously. And sometimes we take it for granted that if that's not if you haven't been socialized in that way, if that hasn't been reinforced in that way, then it does take the training that Daphne is talking about to get there. I think there's a lot of trauma. I always say this. There are a lot of Haitians who are living in the United States of America, who are living in Miami, who have been traumatized by the political system back in Haiti, even here, and don't want anything to do with it. And so until we can unpack that trauma that they've experienced or the fear that they might have of politics, we won't have the strong community that we want to have, that we know we should have, because we haven't addressed fears or trauma, people who have lost loved ones dealing with politics. So it's complicated, but we can get there if we do the training and we really peel back the layers for our community. Let's go to you, Max, because I know you wanted to come in a few times.
Yeah, so just first of all, I appreciate the discussion, but just to hit on a few points here, I just want to make clear about my remark of using the example of both the U.S. putting pressure on the Haitian government to carve out an exemption to the minimum wage in Haiti, and also to the U.S. putting pressure on an ousted president who then, in order to return him to change particular policies. This is not a way of making excuses for sellout politicians and supposed leaders who are making terrible political decisions. I don't think that IOC did the things that he could have and should have done, but that's not the point here. Even if you think that Barack Obama or Donald Trump or Joe Biden now are doing the things that they want to do or don't want to do as president, no one thinks that a president from another country is coming in and strong arming them and saying you can't return to power until you agree to do the things that we say to do. No one is saying that about the president of France. No one is saying that about the prime minister of England or the Queen of England. We're saying that and talking about that in the context of Haiti being a neo-colonial power. Haiti is still dominated. Now, this is not, again, not to make excuses for politicians who are stealing and who are making decisions that have more to do about them than it does about the people who they're supposed to be serving. and who are selling out. And this is not an excuse for that, but we also want to be clear that someone is doing this stuff. On a point that Daphne made earlier, I agree with so much of what you said. One thing I just want to get a little sharper about. Many of us, my family included, didn't leave Haiti strictly because Haiti wasn't good enough. I think that is one way, of course, of describing it. But I think more accurately, it's because someone came in and did some wreck to Haiti. You know, there was a time when I had my house burglarized and some things inside of it were broken. And so I couldn't spend the night there that night. So I went to spend the night at my mother's. I didn't spend the night at my mother's because I didn't keep up a good house, although I don't always keep up a good house, or because my house was, you know, didn't, something was wrong with my house. It was because someone made something wrong with my house. And so when you have a situation where an outside power is propping up dictators, then that has a significant impact on the quality of life inside that place. And if it wasn't for U.S. intervention, I don't think my family would have left Haiti. So I just think that's a more accurate way of putting it. Although I don't disagree with the underlying point. Also, just want to say something real quick about the socialization. I think everyone across the board, needs to be more engaged politically and more involved politically in order to solve problems. I want to be careful, though, that we're not blaming ourselves for having things a particular way. Just want to note that a good voter turnout in the United States is 40% of registered voters. And registered voters is not the same as eligible voters. So there are elections that happen where 15, 20% of the potential people who can vote. And people aren't saying about, white people in the United States that, oh, they're not socialized, right? And they're not engaged and they don't care about the food. There's no people in all my travels, and I'm not the most traveled person, but no people in all of my travels that I've seen who are less informed about the world than United States citizens. No more ignorant about the world than United States citizens. So if there's some socialization that needs to happen, that certainly needs to start here in the United States. I'm not saying that we don't need it in Haiti, but I do want to make sure that we're not thinking about this as some aberration or there's something wrong with us as Haitians because there's certain things that we have. And just on that last related note, we have seen more, there's of course this concern, legitimate concern about disregard for the Constitution in Haiti and disregard for the rule of law. There's been more disregard for the Constitution and rule of law in the United States over the past 5 years than there's been in many countries throughout their whole entire lifetime. And that does happen here as well. So it happens all over the place. We want to make sure that we're not thinking about ourselves in a particular way. All right, this happens in the United States as well, and it's rampant here. The majority of white people in the United States voted for someone who is openly trying to overturn parts of the U.S. Constitution.
Well, Max, thank you for bringing us home for the real info. They might not let you back in if you ever leave, but we'll try to have your back. I want to transition just a little bit into. Thank you for that, Max. And I don't know if Jetri and Daphne has any responses to that before we go into what is New Pop Dormi. Tell us a little bit about Ayibo Post, the work that y'all are doing on the ground, how people can connect with you all. Want to learn a little bit more about what the activism actually looks like on the ground. So any thoughts to Max? Because I think he landed some really great points around what I took from it is that we Haitians often see Haiti as isolated, and we only see us and we don't realize so much things are happening in our neighboring countries, also really happening in America as well. Jetri or Daphne, no pressure. We can turn to what's happening with the things that y'all are active in. Go ahead, Jetri.
Yes, definitely. To Mike's point, there's a lot of points that he made that I agree with, but from our perspective, I guess Daphne and I, when we're thinking about Haiti, we're not doing it. We're not comparing it to the United States or any other country. We're thinking about our current situation first as as a country, a community, but also as individuals. So when we are thinking about the pressing issue, of course, as I mentioned the first when I responded to his first comment, of course we need to take into account the international dynamics and the USA Haiti history and dynamic, but the one that we mainly have um, an impact, we can mainly have an impact on. It's what we have control on. It's the policy and the politics and the politician that are actually active here in Haiti. So on our side, that's all we can do. And on the diaspora side, the best thing that they can do is to organize and make your voice heard. And make your voice heard not only just to be heard. Try to understand really what's happening in Haiti, because I'm seeing um, a lot of speeches, a lot of there's a storytelling in the diaspora that is very on the surface about Haiti. There's a lot of laziness in part, especially the young ones. There's a lot of laziness in trying to understand Haiti. Haiti, just like any society, is very complex. There's a lot of layers. There's layers that I, who live in Haiti, don't understand yet. Um, a few days ago, I had a discussion with someone who's worked a lot in rural areas, who was explaining to me that very often in rural areas, exchanges for so-called businesses, it's not about profits. It's about respect a lot of time. Things that I don't understand and things that we all need to understand to better approach the problems that this society is confronting. So on the diaspora side, of course, on our side in Haiti, we have to do our homework too. But the diaspora, they have many tools to better understand Haiti. One of the to understand Haiti's history right now, you cannot avoid major American history. There's nobody doing a thesis on Haitian history that is not going to consult Duke University, for example. So the diaspora needs to be more curious and stop thinking about Haiti on the surface. And we surely don't want the diaspora to be a diaspora that just come in Haiti to come to a bal, to come to a beach. Of course, this is part of it. We want to have fun with you guys, but we really hope that you guys understand our common history, understand the dynamics, and that are open to acquire new knowledge about Haiti. Because if we're not really knowledgeable about it, we're gonna make wrong choices. The diaspora, are going to make wrong choices, and it's an education process, and we need to be very very serious and also patient in that process.
Gentry just told us stop being lazy with our analysis. Lazy. Do the work. Do the work. Stop being lazy. Go ahead, Daphne.
No, I was just laughing. Yes, I agree with, I don't have much to add to what he said. A lot of times there's information out there. What I notice is the diaspora listens to whatever they want to listen to, don't confirm or try to make sure it's accurate, and they run with it. Some diaspora called me sometimes to tell me news of Haiti when I'm in Haiti, and I'm like, what? You know, and they believe everything. That's another thing. I know you're going to touch on that, how we can help the diaspora find reliable source of information. But I think that's the first thing. I think this is your country. Me, I'm okay with you wanting to come and come vin nan bal, vin nan vacances, etc. Mais lò vini, m'ta souhaité que ou mobiliser assez pour assurer que lò vini, ou vin nan bal la, si ou kon vant fè mal pendant nan bal la, ou kon kote pour al kay docteur. Lò vin ou vin nan vacances là, gon bagay ki rivo, ou pa mouri pour un simple tête fè mal. And then if you have land here, if you have property here, que n'importe moun pa pral monter sous li, et puis qu'on a obligé à bataille avec 50,000 moun pour joindre li back, et puis perdu. So those are the things you should be concerned about, that your country, your home country is running well, that you have good information about what's going on, that n'importe ti vidéo sur Facebook, sur YouTube, pa fait ou penser que pays développé, tandis que y a pile moun, c'est ça y a fait, c'est créer content pour bon menti, pour faire penser tout va marcher bien, et puis engagez-vous plus, parce que ultimately, I mean, this is home. I mean, I'm sure everyone wants to be home. So we might as well. Et puis, on l'a toujours dit, Haitian in the diaspora complain a lot about supporting families back home. And I'm always like, do the Haitians in the diaspora understand that if Haiti was working properly, that they wouldn't have to support their family as much as they support them financially? So that alone should be your motivation. You know, how come Haiti has had access to so much yet is so poor? Yo toujou di pays a gen tout bagay sa yo ki rentre la dan, tout fonds sa yo, tout aide sa yo, diaspora potel sou do l'économically, yet anye pa marché nan pays. So that should really push the diaspora to want to sit down and say, listen, once and for all, we need to figure this out. We need to understand what's not working and find ways and how we can help make it better.
Ooh, y'all are on fire today, tonight. Y'all are sharp. Pour tout moun ki di, pa gen moun ki gen connaissance, meyo. And so y'all are doing a lot of amazing things. People are overwhelmed in the chat. And so I want to go to, tell us a little bit about New Pop Doing Me. We've heard about it. Some folks don't truly understand what it's all about. So tell us about New Pop Doing Me and what you all have been fighting for. Is it the Haitian version of Black Lives Matter, what I've heard? And so really tell us about the movement and what you all are trying to do and what you all have done so far. And this is for Daphne.
Okay, well, No Pap Doing Me is a collective of engaged Haitians, locally and, you know, some in the diaspora already, who basically stem from the Petro-Caribe Challenge. So when the Petro-Caribe Challenge broke out, you know, gazillions of Petro challengers, and we decided as a group to kind of structure the Petro-Caribe challengers and created No Pap Doing Me. So No Pap Doing Me basically is advocating for administration that can serve the population that they were voted in to serve. We're fighting against corruption, impunity, because we really want a socially just country. So in the last 3 years, with everything going on, people think that everything that's going on is between the current administration and the opposition. Yes, there is an opposition in the country. And then people miss a lot of times, especially in the diaspora, they miss the rest of the population that's in the middle, really wanting change here. I'm not saying that members of the opposition don't want change. I'm not saying, what I'm saying is there is a different wave, there's a different group of people in the middle who want a different society, who wants a better society. We want a society where people can live here, that, like I said, there's justice, there's healthcare, there's education. We want a society where the people we vote in respect our laws and respect the democratic principles that we've agreed on as a society already. Whether or not we want to change them further along, that's a different conversation. But we want a society where our laws are respected, that people have an opportunity to live here freely and well. So we've been around for 2 years. Are we like the Black Lives Matter movement? A little bit different, because we're fighting for our lives. So I guess that's how I would sum it up. We have pas vrai dire que nous à 100% parce que Black Lives Matter movement là, li vraiment focus sur racism and etc. So nous pas catégoriser le même genre, mais nous pas dormir, j'aime dire la bataille contre corruption, la bataille contre impunité pour que on aller mieux, pour que on l'autre leadership dans le pays, pour que competence, meritocracy, people who can lead us. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, Daphne, about New Pop Domi, what you want for your country, because I think it's the same thing that us here in America, the masses, the 99, I would believe this is what we want. We want a government that's responsive, a government that is not corrupt, a government that's going to put its peoples first over profit. And so all of that, I think I want to share that what you all are fighting for is the same thing that we also want in our country. Can you tell us, Jetri, a lot about Ayibo Post and the work that you all are doing? Because I think it's fascinating what you all are doing with videos, with the posts that you share to really engage us. Even, for us who don't necessarily speak really good Creole, we follow and can understand really well. And it's really informative the way that you all bring topics to the population.
So Ayibo Post is a media platform. We started as an open blog, participative blog, but very quickly we transformed ourselves into an online media. We focus, and then we tend to focus on explanatory journalism, where we try not only to inform people about what's happening, but explaining it too, because we think it's necessary in the actual context in Haiti. Because the reality is that people get a lot of information, but they don't get a lot of explanation about what they're reading or what they're listening to. Our main focus for the past 2 years has been around corruption a lot, even though now we are much more diversified. We are a very, very young team, probably with an average of, I think, the average age of our team is about 25, 20, 20, 25, 26. So that's what we're doing. In the near future, we've already started with we're doing a two months trial right now. We will try to create more content that is aiming the diaspora. So for now, every weeks we'll translate 2 of our articles, 2 of our report. We'll translate them. So we're gonna have a little English tab for our diaspora who want to better understand what's happening in Haitian society, not only political but the society in general. So that's our goal, is really to bring discussions within our community, to explain and also to inform about stuff that people would not otherwise be aware of, bring awareness to some degree. So that's what we do right now.
Thank you so much for sharing, Jetri. Max, can you tell folks about PACA Power, PACA? Is that what, want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right?
Yes, so the organization I'm with is Pan-African Community Action, or PACA, and the website is there's pacapower.org. Organization based in Washington, D.C. We're anti-capitalist, anti-white supremacist, anti-capitalist, and therefore socialist, anti-white supremacist, and anti-patriarchal organization, and we're fighting for power for working class Black people, both in DC and really around the world. We're an internationalist organization, and we've been keeping an eye on things that have been going on in Haiti organizationally, and we helped organize a demonstration at the Haitian embassy last week, and we have another.
Max, can you put your mic closer to
sorry.
you?
We have part of our organizing has been around Haiti as well. We organized a demonstration at the Haitian embassy last week in support of the people who are protesting in Haiti to get rid of the dictatorship there. And we have another protest happening in front of the OAS building on Monday. And we'll have another one at the end of the month as well, on the 28th or the 29th, around the anniversary of the Haitian Constitution. So we are organizing around issues for power in the US, in Black communities in the US, and for issues of power with Black communities around the world, including Haiti and including all over the continent, all over the world, wherever we find Black people.
Thank you for sharing. I know we're about 8:20. We have about 10 minutes left. I want to talk about a shared analysis that I found that Jetri, you came to America, you studied and you went back home. Daphne, you was here a while, you went back home. You know, for a lot of us, we're like, it's Haiti to show, you know, there's this rhetoric that we see on TV, you know, you know, it's exaggerated to me because I'm like, I don't know, that there are not bombs in Haiti, but there's gun violence, it's so dangerous. Why did y'all decide to stay committed in the ways that you all are to Haiti? Like, what made you make that decision? Because it would have been so much easier to just, you know, I'm over it, right? Let's start with you, Daphne, and then we're gonna go to you, Jetri. You know, it's Women's History Month. He can go first, whatever you want, my lady.
What keeps me here basically is what you're asking, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
What keeps you here and what keeps you committed to being an activist in Haiti when things seem to continue to be this, like what happened today, right?
Right. I spent some time outside of Haiti and I realized that outside of Haiti wasn't for me. So I would say that's the first personal reason. I always missed home and I always felt guilty that, you know, I went to school and I could come back and contribute to my country as opposed to my guest country. So I took the decision and moved back. I always wanted to move back. I dealt with some personal political ups and downs myself growing up with my parents, and basically had to leave Haiti, not, you know, willingly. So personally, I just feel like there comes a time where we have to give Haiti the time Haiti needs, putting our talent, our knowledge, our resources to helping get that change that we keep talking about. So that's why I'm still here. Every day in the back of my head, I keep saying we're only a little bit over 200 years old as an independent country. So we're still very young. Other countries were worse than us. And that Haiti is worth putting in some more time into it. And, you know, as long as I don't feel like my life is literally in danger, even though I've been feeling that way lately, then I'm still gonna do what it takes. I'm still gonna keep being engaged, keep creating opportunities within my scope of work, and give Haiti time, give Haiti love, give Haiti my resources. In my business, you know, I'm into job creation, but about 2 years ago, I realized that as much as we keep saying Haiti needs, you know, people need opportunities, people need jobs, we need this, but that, we're just now introducing this new program into our civic engagement. Haitians need to know their worth. Haitian needs to know their responsibilities. Haitians need to know their rights. And if we keep skipping that part, everyone thinks they have to be senators. Everyone thinks they have to be députés. Tout le monde est président, tout le monde est parce que là, dans le moment, Haïtien juste besoin de monde pour parler avec eux, pour faire comprendre mes droits, mes devoirs. Vous comprenez, là, on monde observer ou mais ça le supposé ba ou, les supposé respecter droit, les supposé bon healthcare ou supposé gain soin santé. Because I feel like still most Haitians don't even know. Jetri mentioned it when he first starting out. Haïtien pas bail l'État gouvernement régler absolument rien pour nous. They've found ways to live outside of, l'État. And we live that again with the corona crisis. No one listened to l'État. Nou ba beaucoup pour parce que qui ça ou j'en fait pour nous. So we need to change that. We need to make sure that people know that the people we vote in, the people we choose to serve us have to serve us and hold them accountable. If they're not serving us, make sure that they feel that the next time around, stop letting them reproduce themselves and keeping us in the situation that we're here. So I'm here because I feel like Haiti is still worth a shot. And I'm committed to giving it that shot every day until I find like une raison vraiment que moi pas arrêter là toujours. I'm committed to that.
That is so respectable. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's go to you, Jetri.
Why am I in Haiti? First, I had no choice. I'm Haitian. I'm born in Haiti and I was raised here, so I had the opportunity to go study in the U.S. And after 5 years, I didn't feel comfortable with the TPS, even though I had it. I was like, I'm going back home. It was time to go back home. So it wasn't. I'm not American. I'm not. I don't have I don't have a, how do you call it, a green card. I don't have a green card, so it's not as if I had a choice to. Haiti is the only place. It's my only bet. But I'm going to talk about something else, not necessarily about the question you asked, but it's about Haiti. Haiti is to me, Haiti is a very cool project. It's a novel project. It's a weird project in which a bunch of slaves decided to create a nation, and this is unheard of. And to understand Haiti, to truly understand the value of Haiti, we need to understand that, and to understand the situations that we're in, we need to understand that too. It's a bunch of people that understood, that had a feeling that there was a way that people should be living, and they felt it, and then they act up on it, and this gave us a nation. So at the same time, we have a lot of pressing issues. We have a lot of um, corruption issues. We have a lot of political issues and social issues that we need to take care of right now. But we also need to, from time to time, take the perspective and understand that Haiti's it's not it's not a simple project. It's not a simple project. It's gonna take time. There's gonna be up and downs. There's gonna be a few dictators here and there. There's gonna be a few incompetent people, but the project itself, the business plan, if you want to put it like this, or the society plan, is still a very, very beautiful plan. And as Haitians, as Haitian American, we need to understand that maybe on our lifetime we're not gonna see Haiti change or the way we wish it could be, but we need to put the little pieces that we can put so that this beautiful plan can at one point burgeon, can at one point um, 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 take birth, really. So we need to be patient with Haiti. We need to be patient with Haitians. It's something very, very difficult to do because we do some crazy stuff. Uh, and I think it's the right way to approach it. At the same time, we have the urgency of our present. We need to act urgently upon that, but also from time to time take the perspective and see that we're part of a beautiful project. We're part of a beautiful project that is Haiti. Let's give us our time, love, um, and let's patiently build it brick by brick.
Oh, y'all are good tonight. Like I felt that in my bones. I mean, my family asked me, what is Avanse Ansanm? What you doing? I'm not in Haiti, but listen, if y'all would have me, I would be, but it's complicated because I'm American. But I'm super inspired, and y'all really gave me chills, because I too, in terms of the Haitian community, I won't ever give up on the Haitian community. I won't ever give up on Black people. And all the narratives that we hear, you know, the history of Black people, the history of Haitian people, they've never given up on me. I won't ever give up on them. So I echo everything that you all have said. And I mean, you all nailed it. It's young. Are we worth it? Yes, we're worth it. And I just want to challenge Jetri, because he said maybe not in our lifetime. You know, I dare to believe that in my lifetime, right? I could see a different America. I could see a different Haiti, and that we, you know, if our parents weren't able to live the dream and go home and retire, that we can stop on this 9 to 5 in America and retire with Glucocuyi in Haiti, right? I'm going to turn to Max to talk about, I know you're still doing Pan-African work. Why are you still doing that? Why is it important to you? And then we're going to circle back and close out with how can people find you all, especially you, Jetri. Ayibo Post is one. I know Daphne has Roy Magazine. How can folks continue to be in study with you all, so that we're not lazy with our analysis, that we're patient with each other, because we understand how this project was birthed, and also that this baby, you know, Haiti is still a baby, right? How to be patient with baby as they stumble, as they fall, but as you know, they will become an adult. So let's turn to Max and your Pan-Africanism. You know, we Haitian, we're from the motherland. A lot of people forget that, but I want you to, you know, come in as well, Max.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to thank you both for the beautiful thoughts about why you're there and still there. I was just very moved by it, and I appreciate both your thoughts and your work. I'm engaged in Pan African work because I am here, but I do recognize the importance of connecting some of the work that we're doing while we are here in the belly of the beast, as we call it, and some of the work that's happening on the continent, and some of the work that's happening in Haiti and in Jamaica and in Cuba and everywhere where there are people of African descent, African people. So I engage in Pan-African work because I believe in Pan-Africanism, that we have to have the way we're going to make Haiti strong is through a liberated and unified Africa, and the way we're going to make prevent Black people from getting shot in the back here in the United States is through a liberated and unified Africa. So that's why I'm engaged in Pan-African work. I think a critical part of that, and there's no Pan-African who doesn't talk about this, is respecting Haiti and returning Haiti to its glory as the first country to emerge from formerly enslaved people, from people who broke their chains. And so we're a great inspiration to the Pan-African world, and I think we need to continue back along the path of continuing to inspiring and leading the world in democracy, which is where we were in 1804.
Thank you, folks. I'm gonna start with you, Max. How can people find you and the work that you all are doing?
So Pan-African Community Action can be found on Facebook, of course, if you just search for PACA, P-A-C-A, and our website is PACAPower, PACApower.org, and you can get a list of things that we're doing, as well as activities, protests, and organizing events, which is mainly what we do here, and some of our international work as well.
Thank you so much, Max. And let's turn to Jetri. How can people find you? And what are some other sources that people can use or know about in terms of trusted media sources that are not the Haitian versions of TMZ, right? What are the trusted sources that people can follow and they can get up-to-date news about Haiti?
Me about media, I always think it's a good diet. You need to take from a lot of places to have the right diet. It's the same thing in Haiti. Us at Ayibo Post, you can find us at Ayibo Post on AYIBOPOST on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course our website, ayibopost.com. Other things that I would suggest, for example, it's been maybe 2 months now. I've been on Duke University's repertory, listening to old Jean Dominique newscasts and to try to understand the period that he was covering, and it's been very interesting to me. So as Americans, we have good internet connection. There's plenty of good sources to better understand Haiti, especially the universities. I saw somebody, the CUNYs, the CUNYs and SUNYs have done a lot of work on Haiti. So I would suggest you guys to just search them, to try to look them up, try to read them. And there's some major books that's been written on Haiti. I'm thinking about Wolf Touillot, who wrote in English about it's his work in English is one of the most impressive work of on Haitian society. So you have plenty of good sources that you can deep in. And since I'm talking to my diaspora, I want to tell you guys that here in Haiti, we know that the $1.9 trillion package was signed. We're waiting for the transfer. We're waiting for the transfer. Okay.
Nouvelle lagaye.
Nouvelle lagaye. Nouvelle lagaye. You better be ready for your cousin's call.
That's right. That's right. I know that they knew before we knew.
Jency, we have a bad connection. I didn't hear you. The last thing you said. Okay, I didn't hear anything. Asking for the money. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear the request.
Go to Daphne. Daphne, how can people find you? How can they stay connected with New Pop Domi, Tisaksik, War Magazine, all the beautiful things that you are involved in?
For No Pap Domi, it's No Pap Domi on all the platforms. Online, it's nopapdomi.org. For Tisaksik, it's Tisaksik on all of the platforms. It's tisaksik.com. For Woy Magazine, same thing. Woy Magazine on all of the platforms and woymagazine.com. It's a bilingual magazine in Creole and English. And yeah, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Y'all were amazing tonight. I think we're almost at 5,000 views. There'll be more. It's not about the views. I think it's important for us, the diaspora, and our brothers and sisters on the ground in Haiti to get closer, to know each other more, to consider ourselves friends in real life, and to be dialoguing and strategizing together. So I think this is one conversation, but there'll be many conversations, many visits. Y'all can always come hang out with me if y'all ever in the States. Want to make sure that we stay close to each other and that we're not thinking in isolation, but we're thinking together. I truly believe, and I'll say this one more time, that in our lifetime, we could see a different Haiti, just like we believe in our lifetime, we could see more advancement for even Black people here in America. And it's only if we stay committed. Today was a tough day in Haiti. And there are tough days here in the States as well, but we're going to stay committed and we're going to wish everyone well and to be safe. Toujours gen corona na la ria. Stay safe, protect yourselves, but also to Daphne's point, I want to make sure that we reiterate that Haiti still has worth and it will always have worth. People still deserve our love and our patience. And Jetri landed us with, if we remember and continue to take a step back and think about what we are birthed from, a project where enslaved people thought that they should be free and did it. I think even more magic can happen in the future. And so we are the descendants of that and we can do even more. And so wanted to definitely name that and tell folks, check us out, Avanse Ansanm. We're here in South Florida, really building economic and political power. We did a lot during past election. We'll continue to do it. We'll continue to try to hold our elected officials accountable. We can't do it without you all. So we'll put pressure here in the USA and we'll for sure cheer you all on as you all put pressure on at home. And let Corona fini, we'll see you at home. It's been too long. And I'll end with that. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate y'all. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Centra.
Bye.
Thank you all.
y'all. I really don't know how to end, so I always just hang up. So bye.
Bye.